was wicked in these mean streets, mean streets.
You already know what it is. This is Wicked Streets TV, where we take you past the headlines and straight into the paperwork. No fairy tales, no glorifying the hustle, just a raw timeline, from the first move to the final sentence. Today, we're heading to Atlanta. This story starts with ledgers in 2019, a $7 million cash seizure in Mexico, and wiretaps that trace their way back to one name, Antonio DaShawn Daniels, also known as Freckleface Shawn. What followed was called the largest heroin seizure in Georgia's history. Hundreds of bricks, millions in cash, dozens of firearms, and a federal case that stretched for years. We're breaking down how it went from numbers in a book to search warrants, to indictments, to jury convictions, and decades-long prison sentences. Because the streets might look fast and flashy on the surface, but the paperwork always moves slower and heavier. If you rock with this kind of content, show some love by hitting them like and subscribe buttons. Let's get into it. This story don't start with blue lights flashing or a SWAT team kicking doors in. Nah, it starts in the shadows, in the numbers, in the kind of paperwork that don't make noise but carries weight heavier than bricks. Between August 2018 and October 2019, federal records say Antonio DaShawn Daniels, known in the streets as Freckleface Shawn in Pecos, was allegedly operating what prosecutors would later call a large-scale drug trafficking organization in Metro Atlanta. That ain't small talk. That ain't corner hustle language. That's federal vocabulary. That's the kind of label that don't get thrown around unless the numbers back it up. And according to the feds, the numbers were screaming. By October 2019, agents uncovered ledgers tied to a Mexico-based drug trafficking organization. Not whispers, not anonymous tips, actual books. And inside those books, they allegedly showed Daniels received just over 1,000 bricks of cocaine in an 18-month window. Let that sit for a second. 1,000 bricks. That's not grab a duffel and run. That's freight. That's supply chain weight. That's the kind of volume that don't move in silence. It moves like an engine humming behind closed doors. And it didn't stop at the weight. The ledgers allegedly reflected that Daniels returned more than $31 million in drug proceeds, money that was eventually transported back to Mexico. 31 million. That's not flip and reinvest. That's infrastructure. That's money counted with machines, not hands. The type of bread that stacks high enough to make a man feel untouchable, until the same stack turns into evidence. See, while the streets might have seen motion, the feds were watching patterns. The investigation officially began in 2019, but once those ledgers surfaced, it stopped being about speculation and started being about connections. Agents didn't just read numbers, they started pulling threads. They secured court-approved wiretaps on Daniels' phones. And once the wiretaps are live, every call ain't just a call no more. Every conversation can turn into a transcript. Every voice can become a co-defendant. Those wiretaps, authorities say, allowed them to identify co-conspirators and map out the organization's reach. Not just who was talking, but who was moving, who was connected, who was part of the machine. Like shining a flashlight inside a clock and finally seeing how all the gears spin together. Then came the name that changed the temperature in the room. Officials later said Daniels was connected to the Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, CJNG, the same CJNG the DEA has identified as one of the most powerful and fastest growing cartels operating in Mexico and the United States. That's not some small-time plug. That's international weight. That's cross-border scale. That's the type of affiliation that turns a local case into something federal agents talk about at press conferences. And here's where it gets cinematic. According to DEA officials, they worked this case backwards. Not from a traffic stop, not from a street buy, from a $7 million cash seizure in Mexico. $7 million in cash. That's the spark that lit the fuse. That seizure led to financial ledgers. The ledgers led to a phone number. The phone number led to Daniels. One step at a time, like following footprints in fresh snow. They didn't even know what he looked like at first. That's what they said. Imagine that. Your name sitting in international ledgers, money flowing, calls being traced, and the people building the case don't even have your face yet. That's how cases like this move. Quiet, patient, layered. The streets see motion and think momentum. The feds see motion and start building timelines. So before the headlines, before the indictments, before the mugshots and press statements, it was just numbers on paper. 1,000 bricks over 18 months. $31 million sent back across borders.
Wiretaps clicking. Agents connecting dots from Mexico to Metro Atlanta. No sirens yet, just a case forming in the dark. And once that kind of paperwork starts stacking, the cuffs ain't far behind. July 27, 2020, that's the day it stopped being rumors, wiretaps and sealed envelopes, and turned into doors getting open whether they wanted to be or not. Federal agents rolled out search warrants across multiple apartments and homes in Metro Atlanta. These weren't random addresses. According to authorities, these were locations Antonio DaShawn Daniels allegedly used to prepare and distribute drugs. Translation: spots the feds believe were part of the engine room, the kitchen, the counting room, the stash. And by the end of that day, officials weren't just calling it a big bust. They were calling it the largest heroin seizure in Georgia's history. That's not hype talk. That's record book language. That's the kind of number that makes even seasoned agents shake their heads. Let's start with the studio apartment. On paper, it's just a small space in Atlanta. But inside, according to agents, it was loaded. Approximately 28 bricks of heroin sitting in there. And here's the part that hits harder. 17 of those bricks were mixed with fentanyl. That's not just product. That's product laced with something that multiplies the danger. Heroin already heavy, now sharpened with fentanyl like a blade dipped in something meaner. Next to that, 6 bricks of cocaine, 8 bricks of marijuana, more than $1 million in cash. $1 million sitting in one apartment. That's not a good week. That's industrial. That's money you don't count by hand unless you got time to waste. And sure enough, agents said they found a money counter right there. Of course they did. When the cash stacks up like that, your thumbs can't keep up. And it wasn't just drugs and cash. Authorities reported finding 41 straps stashed throughout the apartment. 41. That's not personal protection. That's inventory. That's an armory scattered through a studio like it was part of the decor. Guns tucked here, guns tucked there. The kind of setup that says this wasn't accidental storage. This was fortified. Then you look at the tools. Kilo presses, scales, strainers with white powder residue. That's not random kitchen clutter. That's production equipment. Press it, weigh it, cut it, bag it, move it, repeat. Like a factory line. Except the product don't come with barcodes. It comes with indictments. But that was only half the story.
agents hit another Atlanta residence used as a stash location. And what they say they found in there? Over 142 bricks of heroin, nearly all of it mixed with fentanyl. 142 bricks in one house. That's not street corner weight. That's warehouse volume tucked inside residential walls. Along with that came 4 more bricks of cocaine. More weight, more volume. That's not something you hide in a shoebox. That's enough weight to shift the conversation statewide. Officials estimated the value of the drugs at $8.5 million. $8.5 million worth of product. And they described it as unprecedented in Georgia. Not rare, not significant, unprecedented. That word means it hadn't happened before. Not on that scale, not in that state. And that's how July 27, 2020 goes down in the file. Multiple warrants, multiple locations. Studio apartment turned alleged processing hub. Secondary residence packed like a supply depot. Heroin stacked deep, much of it cut with fentanyl. Cocaine boxed up. Marijuana weighed. Cash counted. Guns everywhere. Presses and scales ready to work. No cinematic slow motion, just numbers that hit like a freight train. By the end of that day, what had allegedly been moving in silence was now sitting on evidence tables, bagged, tagged, counted, and written into history as the biggest heroin seizure Georgia had ever seen. Sometimes the streets move loud. Sometimes the feds move louder. July 27 was loud on both sides. August 11, 2020. That's when it stopped being just headlines and started being federal ink. The kind of ink that don't fade. The kind that locks your name into the system forever. Antonio DaShawn Daniels, known in the streets as Freckleface Shawn, was officially indicted on federal charges. Not local, not county, federal. The charges? Possession with intent to distribute heroin, cocaine, and marijuana. And possession of a firearm in furtherance of drug trafficking. That in furtherance part, that's courtroom language that hits different. That's the feds saying the guns weren't just around. They were allegedly part of the operation. After the arrest came the hearing. No dramatic soundtrack, just fluorescent lights and the weight of the moment. Daniels stood there and entered his plea. Not guilty. 2 words that don't sound loud, but in a federal courtroom, they echo.
His defense attorney stepped up and painted a different picture. They argued he was a high-end used car dealer, earning about $120,000 a year. They called the government's evidence circumstantial. That's legal code for you're connecting dots that don't prove the picture. They didn't fold, they didn't flinch. They stood on that. Prosecutors came with the other side of the story. They argued Daniels was a danger to the community. That phrase right there, that's heavy. That's the kind of language that makes judges lean forward. It's not just about whether you show up to court. It's about whether you're safe to be out. Bail was requested. Bail was denied. Denied. When bail gets denied in federal court, that's not a light tap. That's a steel door closing slow. That's the judge basically saying, you stay. No stepping out, no going home. You sit while this unfolds. Then the public statement started rolling in. DEA Special Agent in Charge Robert J. Murphy didn't sugarcoat it. He described Daniels as the largest supplier of heroin in the Bluff. Not one of, not allegedly a mid-level, the largest. In the Bluff? That's an area in Atlanta often referred to as the heroin capital of the South. That name alone carries a reputation. They had a whole documentary about it. Officials said Daniels completely controlled distribution in that area.
completely controlled it. They also said he had high-level ties to Mexican cartels. That's the government's framing: scale, control, and international connections. His attorneys, though, kept it simple. Not guilty means not guilty. But this case wasn't unfolding in a vacuum. The bigger picture was already dark. Before COVID-19 ever shut down cities, the country was already deep in the opioid epidemic. More than 2 million Americans struggling with opioid use disorder. About 130 Americans dying every single day from opioid overdoses. Every day. That's not a stat you breeze past. That's a running clock. Federal officials leaned into that context hard. They emphasized that drug trafficking organizations use fear and violence to enrich themselves, causing widespread community harm. They talked about the damage not just to users, but to neighborhoods. They painted it bigger than one man, bigger than one indictment. So August 11th wasn't just a court date. It was the moment the story shifted from search warrants and seized weight to motions, hearings, and arguments. Indictment filed. Not guilty plea entered. Defense calling it circumstantial. Prosecutors calling him a danger. Bail denied. DEA labeling him the largest supplier in the bluff. Cartel ties mentioned. And all of it unfolding while the country was already losing 130 lives a day to opioids. That's how it moved. From the block to the bench. From alleged control of distribution in what officials called the heroin capital of the South, to sitting in a courtroom while the federal machine started grinding. And once that machine starts, it don't move fast, but it moves heavy. This wasn't some one department case. This wasn't a couple detectives working overtime and hoping for the best. Nah, this was layered. The investigation was carried out by the Drug Enforcement Administration and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, with backup from the Doraville Police Department and the DeKalb County Police Department. That's federal muscle with local boots on the ground. That's agencies stacking up like pieces on a chessboard, each one playing their role. When the DEA and FBI both in the mix, you already know the case file ain't thin. The prosecution side, assistant U.S. attorneys, federal courtroom, federal rules. The case was rolled into initiatives like Operation Scope and later Operation Take Back America. Those ain't just titles. Those are banners the Department of Justice hangs over cases it wants to make an example out of. When your name ends up under an operation title, you're not just a defendant. You're part of a campaign. Fast forward to June 2025. After a jury trial, meaning 12 people in the box listened to the evidence and made the call, Daniels was convicted. Not on one count, multiple. Conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute heroin, fentanyl, and cocaine. Possession with intent to distribute heroin, fentanyl, and cocaine. Possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. And possession of a firearm in furtherance of a drug trafficking crime. When the word conspiracy hits a verdict sheet, that's the government saying it wasn't solo. When fentanyl is in the mix, the temperature rises. When firearms stack on top of drug counts, the years start stretching like a highway with no exit. Then came sentencing. U.S. District Judge Thomas W. Thrash Jr. stepped in and did the math. Daniels was 51 years old at that point. The sentence? 40 years in federal prison, followed by 10 years of supervised release. 40 years. That's not a bid you shrug off. That's not, I'll be back before the decade's out. That's a calendar flipping until the pages wear thin. At 51, 40 years reads different. It hits different. Federal time don't move fast, it crawls. After the sentence, U.S. Attorney Theodore S. Hertzberg made it plain. He said Daniels was one of the largest heroin and fentanyl distributors to ever operate in Georgia. That's the government's framing. He credited the conviction to coordinated efforts between federal and local law enforcement, DEA, FBI, local departments, all moving together. From investigation to indictment, from jury trial to conviction, from conviction to 40 years. Operation Scope, Operation Take Back America, multi-agency task forces, jury verdict, federal sentence. The street story ended in a courtroom. And when federal court closes the book, it doesn't slam it, it seals it. And that's how this one ends. From ledgers in 2019 to a $7 million cash seizure in Mexico, to record-breaking heroin busts in Atlanta, to indictments, jury verdicts, and sentences measured in decades. What started as numbers on paper turned into numbers on a federal judgment sheet. Bricks became case numbers. Millions became evidence tags. Names became inmate IDs. One by one, co-defendants stood in front of a judge and heard the clock start ticking. 10 years, 15, 25, 40. That's not hype. That's federal time. That's birthdays missed. That's calendars flipping behind razor wire. The streets might move fast, the money might stack quick, but the system moves patient. It builds, it waits, and when it finally comes, it doesn't rush, it closes. This is Wicked Streets TV. We don't glorify it, we document it. We break it down so you see the full picture, from the rise, to the raid, to the sentence. If you're watching this and you think the game only shows the flashy side, remember this story. Because for every headline about weight and millions, there's another headline about decades. Stay sharp, stay dangerous in your thinking, not your decisions. And if you're new here, like, subscribe, and tap in. More real street documentaries on the way. Wicked Streets TV, we out.
This shit is wicked in these mean streets, mean streets.